Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we have a very special, intimate, amazing interview in store for you guys. We're in Paul Nison's garden. Look at this, mango trees, jackfruit trees, so many different things, soursop, watermelon coming in, and he grows his own food, and he's a 30-year raw vegan. I think he's a successful restaurant owner in the past with raw foods and has so much to share with us. So stick around to the end and let's hop into it. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Thanks for coming on out.
Yeah, you're looking amazing. So 30 years, only raw food, or do you have cheat days? Have you deterred sometimes?
I have no cheat days. I've been 100% 30 years, except after about 14 or 15 years, I experimenting with raw goat milk and raw eggs, and I ended up getting sick. So I went back to 100% raw. And besides that year, well, a little cooked food in there as well. I went back to a little cooked food around that time to see if I got sick from the raw eggs and dairy or the cooked food. And I know it was the raw milk and the raw dairy. It wasn't the cooked food. But either way, I went back on 100% raw vegan. So in those 30 years, I spent maybe a year and a half in between there. And when I started doing the raw eggs and the cooked food, I'm talking 5% of my diet. It was still like 95% raw.
Yeah, and do you think it's a big difference, like how you feel on the raw food versus incorporating some cooked food?
I felt a tremendous difference energy-wise, sleeping-wise, definitely felt a difference. For me, 100% raw is the way to go because as you get into my story, I had an illness and I have to be all raw. But for the average person, they might feel better doing some cooked, and it's okay to do some cooked for the average person because besides just the food part of it, which is easy, it's a social and a mental part of it that really people have challenges with going
Yeah,
raw.
because not that many people eat like us, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, rewind a little bit. What do you mean by illness where you have to eat this way?
So when I was 19 years old, I got diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, also known as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. That's the intestinal disorder. The colon was inflamed. And after going to the doctors and finding out what was going on, I realized they told me I had ulcerative colitis. They said I was a high risk for colon cancer and they might take out my colon and all this. I didn't like any of those answers. And so I happened to live near the Hippocrates Health Institute, or I moved down here near there. I didn't even know what raw food was. Found out, and I went on a raw diet, 100%. And I know if I don't eat great, my condition can come back, so I don't chance it.
Yeah, it's a big difference,
So
right?
I have a great motivating factor of an illness to help me stay healthy. A lot of people don't have that blessing. I consider that what people consider a tragedy as a blessing, because who knows how bad I was eating, how it would have been like now if I never had that experience.
Yeah, so you noticed a big difference, right? When you transitioned to 100% raw food. Like what happened back then? Do you remember?
Well, I was really sick. I had ulcerative colitis. It's a terrible illness. And I got better almost immediately by going to a raw food diet.
Crazy, right?
And I interviewed people all over the world at that point. This was like 25 years ago, who had been eating a raw food diet for a long time back then. And that's where I met Doug Graham, and I met Dr. Fred Bishie, who I became great friends with, and a bunch of other people. And I had all those interviews, and I decided I'm going to put that into my first book. And I put that into my book, and then I wrote interviews with more people. And that was before the internet was popular. So these interviews were like in the book. Some of them were typewritten from S.E. Hannibal, who was a fruitarian from Australia back then, and Africa, and Maurice Kruk, who has the best old-time books. So yeah, I met all these people. I was encouraged to go raw. And there's many different ways to do raw. I did it different ways over the years. But I have no desire for cooked food.
Yeah, me too. There are many different ways to do it, and you've been around so many people, you've experienced so many things, you've experimented. So in your opinion, like what are some of the do's and don'ts and some of the best ways to do this lifestyle, and maybe some of the ways you think people are doing things wrong or right?
Sure. Well, each person's in their own individual area and their own time. So they all have their own schedules and everything else. There's definitely things I know that work, and that is overeating is a big problem. The problem with not just raw food or the world's standard food is people eat too much, too often, too late, and the wrong food. So processed raw food, like we would say raw food recipes, but no, they're processed. I think whole plant-based foods is best. Once we process them into these recipes and everything else, they're no longer the best.
Yeah.
So, and that's okay every now and then to have a recipe, but too much. Everyone's eating too much, and it's a big problem.
It's a big problem. I think you're right. One of the biggest problems out there.
Everyone's eating too often. they eat too much, too many meals. We only need 1 or 2 meals a day, and people are just snacking and all of this are eating way too much, too often, and too late. I wrote a book called The Daylight Diet. People are eating too late, and it's one of the worst habits you can have, no matter what you're eating, is to eat before going to sleep or eating when it's late. So I do my best not to eat when it's dark outside.
I think that's a good rule.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. I think like my mom just passed away this year, and I know she was only 67, and I know with her too, I would say like just start some intermittent fasting or try stop eating like a few hours before bed. And she just couldn't kick, like eating late was just her thing, and like eating Mars bars in bed. Bless my mom, like I love her so much, and like and I just think it's really toxic to the system, right?
It's what we're conditioned to do. We're conditioned to eat late at night. It's a habit hunger situation. It's not a true hunger, but it's also hormonal too. And people eat late at night, and it's what we're conditioned to do. And that's the first thing I would tell people, is to stop eating late and be consistent at not eating too late, because that's one of the worst things you can do for your health. Because when you eat late at night, it messes up your sleep. And sleep is another word for healing. And when you mess up your healing, guess what you're not doing? You're not healing. So we want to put ourselves in a position, and this is what I think the raw vegan diet done the correct way does, gives our body the place to get the best sleep, the best healing.
I agree. And so take us through, like, what do you eat in a day?
Now, it's changed over the years many times through experimenting and everything else, but I usually don't eat my first meal till noontime, and it's usually some type of fruit, preferably in season or locally grown. And then, you know, a couple hours later, I'll have a salad. And in the salad, I'll have sea vegetables, I'll have sprouts. Sprouts are a big thing for me. I learned about the diet from the Hippocrates Health Institute. I'm very big into the microgreens. So then I'll have a salad, and pretty much that's my day.
Yeah, I think I just got into sprouting, making it myself, because I always buy them. It's so easy.
So easy.
I love it, and I've heard they're high in protein. So like, what do you say about protein? I know, like, I don't bring this up too much, but sometimes people watch and they're like, what about the protein? So how do you feel like you get your protein, and have you felt like all these years you get your needs met? You've never worried like, oh, maybe this isn't the right diet?
I always watch my blood work. I've always done that for a long time, and I'm very much into exercising. And I'm not a gym rat, but I'm a gym mouse, right? I love to go to the gym. I feel it's important because, you know, osteoporosis is not a disease of vegans. It's a disease of people that don't exercise enough. So I think doing strength building exercise, I know you had Scott in the show, calisthenics is amazing.
Yeah.
Any strength building exercise is so important. And they say you need protein to build muscle. No, you need to exercise to build muscle.
Exactly.
But as for the protein and nutrients and everything else, I monitor my blood work, which gives me an idea if I'm getting what I need and so on. I had issues with high cholesterol, believe it or not, which is very interesting. Besides the high cholesterol, things have been pretty much fine. So, I mean, protein, I get more than enough protein. I don't count calories, but I know I don't eat a lot. I continue to try to eat less. But when I did a long fast, like 30 days on water.
Oh, yeah.
And after the fast, I hadn't eaten raw food recipes in years, but then I broke out the recipe book and I started making raw food recipes. And I ended up putting on like 20 pounds.
No way.
And so I stopped the recipes and went back down in weight. And yeah, but I don't think I'm missing anything.
How was the water fast? Was that a good experience?
It was an amazing experience. I've had a lot of experience with fasting prior to that for days, weeks. But this was just the longest I went, and I had more energy on the last day than I did on the first day.
No way.
Oh yeah, and when fasting, the first 2 days are challenging. After that, it's pretty easy, but it was absolutely amazing. And
it's funny because you wouldn't expect that energy with a water fast, maybe with other types of fasts, but not a water fast. That's good. And spiritual experience, I would think too.
Spiritually, and this whole path of the raw food diet, it's just changed. When I started this, I was an atheist, and now I'm a believer in Yeshua, the one they call Jesus, and it's changed my life completely.
Yeah.
As for the fast, it just enhanced everything. And like when you eat a raw food diet and you feel amazing, it's hard to explain to the average person what good health feels like, because they can't comprehend it. And you can't explain it if they've never experienced it. It's the same thing when you fast, telling people that eat raw food or anything how great you feel on the fast. They can't comprehend, like, how can you do that? But when you understand the body, you understand how it works, you understand why you could have more energy on the 30th day of the fast than on the first day.
Wow. And okay, so where do you think you'd be today? Like, really, if you didn't start with raw foods, you didn't take this path?
Well, we'll look at my siblings, the closest people to me. A twin sister and an older brother. My twin sister just passed away. She had cancer, and she was just eating terrible. And my brother's not.
Oh, and she was your twin sister?
Yes, yeah.
Wow, no way.
Yeah.
And she passed away?
Yes. And
Wow,
and
sorry.
all diet related, 100%, and smoking related.
No way.
And my brother, he's not doing too well either. And he was an athlete in college, and he tried out for the New York Mets, and he's not doing well. So where do I think I would be? Not in a good place, but they're good examples of probably where.
Did your sister try raw food at all, or
No,
when
no,
had-
she didn't eat anything
wasn't
raw.
open to
She
it?
wasn't open to it.
See, when my mom first got diagnosed with cancer, the first time she had stage 3 breast cancer, and then right away she went raw for like the first 30 days, and she was calling me up. She's like, I never felt better in my life. And then I was like, this is amazing. But then she just slipped back to the other side, right? Like rotisserie chickens every day, and was
Yeah.
a big like smoker and vapor. And so I couldn't keep her on it, but I tried. But then the days where she would eat raw or have like green juices, she was like, I feel my best. Like it's a big difference what we put in our body. Every single thing has such a big effect on our body, you know?
Yeah. And my mom was sick. She recently passed away as well, and she knew about the raw food, but I sent her like astaxanthin, which is a great supplement for people that want to heal. It's a liquid algae, and she sent it back to me. And I help people all the time with these conditions, and people don't want to hear. So, it's really, to some degree, a spiritual, but definitely an emotional thing. We're conditioned to eat certain foods, to eat too late at night, to eat too much. See, we find pleasure from just other things than just our food, but we're conditioned to find pleasure from our food. And this is why people can't even stop. It's not about what food's good for you or anything like that. It's not about hunger. It's about, I need to get pleasure from something, and I'm not getting it from life, so I'm going to look to food for it.
Yeah.
But when you make the food taste great and eat these great foods that you can grow, you get a lot of pleasure from it. And I didn't even know when I was younger what real food tasted like. And
Me
now
too.
I know because I'm growing it, and it's a tremendous difference.
Yeah, so what got you into growing your own food? I think it's amazing. And you don't even have like a massive piece of land, and you show
Yeah.
like you've maximized the land. I love that.
Well, so I wanted to learn how to make raw food recipes when I went raw, because I want to know where my food's coming from. I hate buying food where I don't know where it's come from, because I'm putting it inside my body.
Yeah.
Years ago, everyone would say they don't want to put something in their body because they don't know what was in it, and they made a big thing about that. But then they went to the store and they ate the food, and they didn't know where that came from.
True.
And,
Good point.
So I wanted to make sure I know where my food was coming from, and I lived in an apartment my whole life in New York. And then when I came to Florida, I got a little townhouse, and a man told me every food you need for the rest of your life, you can grow in that little townhouse spot. And I did. I grew food. I wasn't eating it all like 100% for my diet. I was still eating out, but I wanted to get a yard, and I got this yard, and I started growing. Even at the townhouse, it was an HOA, and I wasn't allowed to grow, and I had a bunch of fruit trees.
Oh, yeah.
But here, I planted. There was nothing here. I planted fruit trees, planted the garden, and just learning and growing, and I keep learning. And I have a very successful YouTube channel where I teach people how to grow fruit trees in small places. And most people do it as a hobby, but I do it because this is the food I eat, and I'm up to a point where maybe 80% or maybe even 90% of the food in my diet comes from something I've grown.
That's amazing. It's a
Yeah.
big difference, right? When it's
Yeah.
freshly picked. Because I was just today at the fruit hunter's farm,
Yeah.
and just eating the food fresh all day off the tree, I noticed a big difference.
Tastes
it's
so
just
different. And
so much more electric, makes you feel even more alive, right?
Exactly, and it makes a tremendous difference. And the thing is, people say, well, you can do that because you have this land. That's why sprouting is so amazing, because if I knew about sprouting when I had my apartment in New York, I could have grew my own food there.
Yeah.
Sprouts are like the greatest food, and you can grow that there. When I lived in New York, I got wild edible foods. I used to go and get that, eat the weeds off the sidewalks and things
Yeah.
like that. But
I love it.
this is really, truly amazing. So I love it, and I can come out here and pick my own food.
I love that. And okay, there's so many different ways too, like we were talking about, to do this lifestyle. So what are your thoughts on that? Because you know so much. So you see a lot of people doing like only fruit, like not even just for a cleanse, for like a lifestyle, or other people doing like higher fat. What are your takes on those types of things? Do you think we should limit our fat or
Well,
limit our
here's
fruit?
the thing. There's only a small amount of people that have been doing a raw food diet 100%
True.
long term.
Yeah.
You know, everyone could do it for like 5 years and feel amazing, or 4 years, but that's nothing. Long term, there's only a few people that are doing it. And I've gotten to interview many of those people that have been doing it long term. There are very few 100% raw food vegans in the world that have maybe 10 years at most. But I'm great friends with Dr. Fred Bishie.
Yeah, I
You know,
interviewed
I
him
know
in
he's on your
Staten
show.
Island. Yeah.
60 years, and he's thriving.
Yeah, he's
I've-
94 or 90.
yeah,
Is he 95 now?
95 now.
95.
Dr. Doug Graham, you know, I know him for a long time. And they all of them seem their diets, when I ask them about it, they all seem to be low fat. They all seem to be low fat.
A lot of them are.
Yeah, they don't have titles, but
I've interviewed Lou. You know Lou. He's
I
in
know
his
Lou.
70s.
Yeah,
I would say he's not low fat. I
Yeah.
did a What I Eat in a Day video with him.
Yes.
He's also, though, very careful. Like, he takes his great time with, like, making sure everything is soaked and sprouted properly and all that. So that probably makes a difference, too.
It makes a tremendous difference when you eat nuts and seeds to soak them first. Tremendous difference. I know Lou for 25 years or so.
Oh, yeah? Yeah,
so,
he is
but
something
again,
special.
Again, if you think about it, there's probably not more than on a handful that you could think that have been doing this long term for that long. But for me, low fat is great, but I definitely like my greens and my microgreens and
Me
my
too.
sprouts. I definitely like to get that in. I like to juice. Sometimes I get into juice and sometimes I go a long
Yeah.
time without it. I like to juice, but definitely the fruit, I eat a good amount, but I do my best to try not to overeat. I see
Yeah, I've heard
overeating
that
is the
about
big
you.
issue. Overeating
I
is a
think
big
you're
issue.
right. In our culture
Yeah.
in general, no matter what lifestyle or diet people are on. So any tips or advice how you think people can get a hold of that? Because I think it is really hard. And I think like what you're saying too, it is an emotional thing. A lot of us have a lot of trauma and that's just what we turn to like, you know, just stuff our face. Any tips for how to get over that?
The type of food we're eating makes a difference. Because if we're eating good quality food, it satisfies the nutritional needs much quicker. So we're not always craving food. When you're eating low quality food, this is why people that eat a junk food diet often overeat, because they're not getting, even though they're feeding themselves, they're not getting about the nutrients it needs. So their cells are still creating more food and more nutrition. But really it comes down to discipline, and everyone's disciplined for what they love. You know, I know people that get up 6 o'clock in the morning every morning, even in the cold, snowy weather, to walk their dog. They love that. Their dogs, caring for their dogs, so they've disciplined themselves to do that. My discipline is I want to feel as best as I could, longevity, and I don't want to feel sick. So to do that, I know I have to not overeat. So that's my discipline. So we got to do what? Discipline's a big part of it. So people say to me, how could I just stop eating at like 6 o'clock, or how can I stop?
They think it's crazy.
Or how can I stop? Yeah. And I say, the food part's easy. They go, yeah, but I just can't bring myself to do that. I say, you don't need a nutritionist, you need a psychiatrist, because the food part's easy.
You know what? It's true.
You know?
It's true.
You
You're
know?
right, actually.
So just eat apples and oranges and spinach. There you go. You're fine. But I can't see myself just eating that. You know, are you able to? I'm able to, but I think I need more. Well, speak to a psychiatrist then, because that's all you need.
You know what? That's good advice.
You know?
And okay, something else. I think we did a video on it once. Now that I think about it, a while ago about cacao. So early in my journey, I never had cacao. Like I was really strict, never had it. And then over the last year when I was taking care of my dad before I got sick, and then taking care of my mom, and then flying back and my dad died, flying back and my mom died, and then a lot of probate stuff going on behind the scenes that I'm not allowed to talk about. It was just a lot. And then I found over the last few months, I was turning to cacao every day. And then I was getting more and more addicted. Like one smoothie wasn't enough. I need 2 smoothies. And then 2 smoothies aren't enough. I need raw cacao bars. Then and I'm just like, and then I just noticed it started making me more angry. I started like, just my personality it was affecting me. But then I talked to people about that. They're like, no, it doesn't have that effect. Like it doesn't do anything. But I think it does. Like, I don't know. I go through my phases with it, but you think so too, right?
100%. It definitely makes people angry. And it's like, I used to have people coming up to me at lectures, like shaking. They go, I can't get off this stuff. I'm so addicted to it. Like, literally. But the story was cacao.
7 days clean over here.
Yeah, good. I call it Cacao, not cacao.
It is.
Definitely not a superfood. If you want a chocolate-flavored substance, do carob or something. But the story about cacao is Jeremy Safran, who's he was a long-term raw vegan, but he's not raw vegan anymore. But he's very wise. He lives in Hawaii. He's the one that kind of discovered the cacao craze for the raw food community. It's always been out there, but he discovered it. And all the antioxidants and everything are in the fruit, not necessarily the seeds.
Okay, so I have one of those pods in the car,
Yeah.
like the actual pod. If I cut that open and like suck on the fruit and eat it, am I going to get the same stimulation?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, so it's in the
in the seed.
In the seeds.
Which is very, very
so
bitter.
What, they
it's
melt
not
down
even
the
healthy.
seeds to make the cacao.
Oh yeah, it comes in the seed and they melt that, they grind it up. And the problem, it's terrible, it tastes terrible, but you got to mix it with sugar and chocolate or dates or something to make it taste good. It doesn't taste good
And
plain.
if you think about it, it's kind of unnatural and weird to melt down the seeds.
Absolutely. Then I don't know if they melt it or they grind it
But
up.
that's what they use?
However, yeah, that's what they use. The fruit is great, but it's so little. That's why they're not going to sell the fruit and make money, but they make money off the cacao. But it does give things a chocolate flavor when you mix them with If it's milk chocolate, milk. But even if not, you got to mix it with sugar. Otherwise, it's bitter.
Yeah.
They ferment it. It's just a whole bad story. But anyway, so Jeremy found out that first he was promoting it, and then he found out that some people were having problems with it. The problems we're talking about. They were addictive.
Oh, he's doing that to me.
And some other issues.
Yeah.
And so he told another promoter who was a raw foodist at the time, probably the biggest promoter of it. We won't get into names, but
let's get into names. Let's spill some tea, Paul. No, I know we don't need
anyway,
to. I'm joking.
So he told that guy in confidence. He said, "Look, I know I told you about this, but it's really not healthy. It's creating more problems."
Yeah.
And that guy had a choice to say, "Okay, well, we won't promote it anymore," or I'm going to go and make this a big thing and start selling it. I'm making money off this, and it's working. So he went out and called it the great superfood, and then it became a very popular thing. And like I said,
but not everybody's like us. Some people literally, they say it doesn't have that effect on them. Do you think everybody's microbiome and body is different, and maybe some people it just doesn't affect?
Well, it doesn't necessarily. They don't have the results of it, but it's still an issue because you got to think people can eat pizza and hot dogs and not get sick immediately.
Yeah,
what's it doing in the body? I mean, it speeds up the heart rate because it has caffeine in it, or it has
theobromine too.
Yeah, theobromine, which is, it's like coffee. People could drink coffee and not automatically feel it, but we know it's not good.
So what about when people out there eating normal diets or eating regular chocolate? Like they're just picking up a chocolate bar, they're eating a chocolate cupcake, like normal chocolate that's not like the type of raw stuff that we've eaten. Are they still being affected?
I've seen people have less effects eating the common chocolate that you buy in the market than eating this, the stimulation and what they're getting from the raw cacao. That's what my observation is. But then on the other hand, those people that are eating your Hershey's milk chocolate are dealing with cancer and all these other illnesses. So maybe this is like the last thing they need, and they need to stay awake. So maybe it's helping them. But it's if you're eating it and you eat it in a dessert every now and then, so be it. But if you think it's a superfood, it's not. And that's my only message. It's not a superfood. The body's amazing, and you can get away with it, but it's not a superfood.
Okay, so what are some superfoods in your opinion, and any other foods you avoid? Because I'm guessing you avoid cacao fully then. Have you had cacao? When was the last time? Do you remember?
I avoid it fully. No, I avoid it fully. Superfoods, definitely sea vegetables. Sea vegetables are packed with minerals that a lot of people are deficient in. Sea vegetables, all kinds, nori, kelp, and dulse is just wonderful. Dulse, arame, wakame. Sea vegetables are amazing. The other thing is sprouts, the microgreens, absolutely amazing. And I do like fermented foods. I don't like fermented drinks. I'm not a fan of kombucha.
Like kombucha.
Yeah,
I was addicted to that for a while too. I'm off it too because I don't think it's.
Because I don't want to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
But I do like kimchi, and I love sauerkraut.
Me too.
So those are two big ones for me, and I make those.
That's a good answer.
So besides my greens and my fruit, those three things are big things. The microgreens, the fermented foods, and the other one, the sea vegetables.
Okay.
Those are things that would do any diet well, in my opinion.
And anything else you avoid?
Like eating late at night, overeating more than what I'm eating. But I don't typically do mushrooms. There's a lot of benefit to the medicinal mushrooms people might get in capsule form. But eating at standpoint, I try to avoid that. I do not eat, for the most part, I don't eat extracted oils. I used to, and if I went to a Hippocrates the other night, they might put something in something. Okay, but at home I try to avoid extracted oils. Salt is a very tricky one because it's something that I know when I eat it, it helps me to overeat.
True.
Yeah, so I try to stay away from adding salt. Now there's salt in my sea vegetables. I add salt to my sauerkraut and my kimchi when I make that. But for the most part, I try not to put salt on my stuff, even in my dressings. When I do, I definitely know I want to eat more. So I try to, and there's a popular diet out there which is sugar, oil, and salt-free. And some people might do okay with those things, and I'm saying I'll never touch those things if in a recipe, but those are the things I like to avoid.
Yeah, and what do you think about the carnivore diet?
The carnivore diet is something that has created a lot of headaches for me because a lot of people think it's great because people are getting results on it. So I'd like to ask people when I interview them that have been doing this a long time about it. They all get into, well, we were designed to be vegans, we had hands for picking food, our bodies aren't designed and created to eat meat and all this stuff. But you know, if you look at results, people get the results. The answer is they're not feeling great because they're eating only animal products or animals. They're feeling great because they're eliminating so much stuff from their diet that they were eating. So any diet's going to work when you eliminate things, but health doesn't begin when you add to your diet. It begins with you eliminate the problem, and this problem's going to start to go away. So the carnivore thing is absolutely crazy. I am a vegan for ethical reasons and health reasons, and from a biblical standpoint, because I'm very much into the Bible. You know, people say, well, God allowed us to eat this and do all these different things, but you know, people like to pick and choose and do all these things. But even then, I don't think our Creator wanted us to eat this, because in Genesis 1:29, He told us fruits and vegetables are the food for man. And the only reason why He added animals was because man didn't listen to Him, and they got themselves in a terrible situation, and there wasn't no fruits and vegetables for a certain amount of time. Then man started eating animals, and the lifespan went from 900 years all the way down to under 100 years, and it continues to decline from there. I think eating the animals is not wise, but again, people can go on a coffee diet and give up everything except coffee, which I'm not a fan of. I've never had a cup in my life.
I never had
never
anyone
had
doing
it.
that diet, but I know what you're saying.
But people can go on any type of diet where they're just eating one thing, and they're going to do better because they've eliminated so much of the junk, but eventually it's going to catch up to them. And everyone who's eating a carnivore diet might feel great now because of the stimulation and also giving up the stuff, but long term they're going to end up getting some major diseases if they continue with it.
Yeah, I would think heart problems and
so many
blockages
issues.
like crazy.
So many issues.
And I know you're talking about, you know, eating the one thing. Have you ever done any types of cleanses where you do that? Sometimes in the summer I'll do like a watermelon cleanse where I just mono eat for a bit and I feel so good. Have you done any of that or no?
Well, when I eat, for the most part, I like to mono eat. And right now I'm eating a lot of watermelons because it's almost mango season, but I'm eating watermelon and papayas that I'm getting on my tree, the papayas. But I've done fasting for a while. There was a stretch where I fasted 1 day a week. As for just going a whole week, I've done juice fasts, many juice fasts for a whole week, but never just like one fruit for a whole week, like just one watermelon or something like this.
You used to fast 1 day a week? I think you've told me about
I
that
fasted
before.
1 day a week for years.
Oh yeah? Like every Monday you fast
every
from everything?
every Saturday,
dry fast,
every Saturday it was usually a water, but sometimes dry.
And you felt it benefited your life?
Whenever you're eating less, or at least for me, whenever I'm eating less, I always end up feeling better because it all comes down to your sleep. Everything comes down to your sleep. And there's not enough hours in a day to get the proper amount of sleep we need if we're eating too much. And when we eat less food, it gives our body a certain amount of time to need to process and work and digest that food and heal. But when we eat too much and we got to get up to do a daily life, we're cutting our sleep short. So when I eat too much, or if anyone eats too much, they're essentially cutting their sleep short, cutting their healing short, and that's going to add to problems. So when you're fasting or when you're just eating less in general, you're giving your body a chance to heal during sleep because that's where healing takes place.
Yeah, okay, well said. And you know, a lot of the older long-term raw vegans, you've been around a lot of people. What would you say are some of the biggest takeaway and biggest things you've learned from them?
Well, spiritually, I mean, Dr. Fred Bichy, he believes in the Bible and he believes in Jesus, and the concept of, I don't know if you know about the Essenes. A lot of people are into the Essenes, and they had the right idea with what they're teaching and so on. There are some long-term raw foodists, the natural hygienists from the long term. They're big into fasting, and fasting, again, it all comes down to William Esser, he lived to 93 years old, and he lived, his fasting retreat was right down the block here, and I met him when he was 93 and like a couple of maybe weeks before he passed, but his big thing was fasting. And I said, how often do you fast? I got to interview him for my book. I was so excited because this has been a fasting natural hygienist who's been doing this for a long time. I don't know, have you heard of him, William Esser?
I've heard the name, yeah.
So I asked him, how long do you fast? Because of course we're curious and we want to know these things. He goes, I never fast. I go, why not? He goes, because I don't overeat, I don't have to fast.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You know, so it's much better to be consistent and eat a little amount and be consistent than overeat and then go on a fast. You know, we shouldn't need to fast.
True, you're right.
If we're just eating the right way, we shouldn't need to.
We just need to be a little bit more balanced, all of us,
and really, 2 meals a day is all we need to eat, and don't eat late at night. I mean, that's all we really need. Now, some people might say, well, I need more food. Needs a very heavy word because I'm very active, and I exercise, I work out, and I also am running around all day long. So I never have energy issues. I don't have strength issues. I make sure that, you know, this works. And
Yeah.
2 meals a day is what does it. Not just for me, for everyone that thinks that they can't do it. I invite them to try it and see.
And you feel full and satisfied, right? Because I think a lot of people think, well, I just can't feel full in the raw food.
Yeah, well, you know, that could be tricky because of the recipes that some eat, and if they switch to raw processed food, they're never going to feel full and satisfied. And I know a lot of people that start the raw diet and then they don't feel full and satisfied. I feel full and satisfied because, again, I get my pleasure from life, and I don't
Good
even
point.
have to eat. There's another guy I interviewed. His name is 𝒂𝒂𝒊𝒕𝒉𝒈𝒊𝒂𝒏. They call him High Priest 𝒂𝒂�𝒊𝒕𝒉𝒈𝒊𝒂𝒏, and he's been doing this for a very long time. And you got to see his interview on my channel. It's absolutely amazing, and the things he shared about doing this, growing up in Africa doing this. And 𝒔𝒂𝒗𝒆 is another person who I've spent a lot of time with.
He's
He was
cool.
one of him and 𝒔𝒂𝒗𝒆 are some of my first interviews, and Brian Clement when I first started doing this.
And who do you think is like the oldest raw vegan that we know of?
Fred
now? Do you
Bishie.
know? Fred Bishie, yeah.
Without a doubt,
I
yeah.
thought so, wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's 95. I went to his house. He had
Yeah.
so much energy.
Yeah, actually
like
he's
going up and
96
down the
now. He's
stairs,
96.
all over the house, showing me his oxygen machine or whatever it
Yeah.
is, and just so much energy. Hearing perfect, eyesight
Yeah.
perfect. I was
Yeah.
like, this is incredible. That's how we want to be, right?
Yes.
That's why it's important to me how I take care of myself now, because I see that's how I'm going to be in my 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? It matters, everything we do.
Yeah, when I see something on the internet that looks interesting, or if I have a question or controversy, I'm blessed to be friends with Dr. Bishie, so I get to call him up and we talk several times a week and ask him about these things. And now there's a guy, Brian Johnson, who's really into longevity.
Yeah, I've seen
and
him.
like I'm obsessed with things like that. And what he does is like tries to stop eating early, and just longevity is what we're all interested in. So I'll call Dr. Bishie up and I'll ask him, what do you think about this, this, and this? And he'll give me his assessment and his opinion, and we watch things. And so it's good to know that. But he's the oldest one out there. But 𝒔𝒂𝒗𝒆, he's on the internet, he's active. And then there's 𝒂𝒂�𝒊𝒕𝒉𝒈𝒊𝒂𝒏. He's absolutely amazing, and he's around. And there's another guy I was just telling you about, Dr. Frank Sabatino.
Yeah.
He's not 100% raw, but he's natural hygiene, and his stuff is really, truly amazing.
And there's Annette Larkins, right?
Annette Larkins, I hadn't spoken to her in quite a while, but I spoke to her back in the day. So I don't know what she's up to now.
She's
but
in her 80s, I think,
yeah,
right?
I think her husband passed, I think.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think so too, like a year or two ago.
And I was good friends with a lady named 𝒔𝒂𝒂𝒊𝒕𝒉𝒈𝒊𝒂𝒏, who spent a lot of time with Ann Wigmore. And this lady used to have a healing retreat up in Michigan. And she just passed in her 90s. And so I got to spend time with her. And that's it, you know, speaking to people that have done it for a very long time. And that's where you learn a lot, because these people put it into practice, and it's amazing.
And do you think there's still more things to learn, or do you feel like you have it all figured out now?
Always. I'm always learning, and we don't know what we don't know. So whenever I hear somebody or somebody says they know it all, they figured it out, I'm thinking this guy doesn't know
I'm like,
anything.
red flag.
You know,
I think so too.
exactly. There's always stuff to learn. Like I said, up to a couple of years ago, I lost 20 pounds in 1 month because I was overdoing the fat. I didn't even realize it. I was putting on my salad, I was putting a salad dressing with fat, I was putting nuts in the fat, I wasn't counting it, I wasn't soaking my nuts. And I was like talking, and Fred Bishie was like, you shouldn't weigh that much. And I said, I'm eating raw, I'm doing great, and I exercise a lot. And then he said, no, just cut back on the fat. And I did, and I lost 20 pounds in 1 month. But a lot of it had to do with the dehydrated food. That was a problem. Dehydrated food is like it's like cooked food, pretty much.
I agree.
And so when I got married a couple of years ago, and maybe longer than that now, and my wife's an amazing raw food chef, and she would make me some of the best raw food recipes that far exceeding what I could ever make. And it was good, but it was like I was eating too much of them, so that was it. So I said, I got to cut down on it. And now she slowed down on that, so it helps.
That's good, because you want to feel your best. And you know what I like about Fred? Like, he still helps a lot of people. He still works. He's like in his passion and his purpose at 95. Because a lot of people stop doing that and maybe stop working. And I mean, everyone is on their own path, but I think that really helps keep us going, is still, doing things that get us excited, because it's not just all food, right? As we get older, we want to still focus on having a great life in other areas, with our relationships, with our work, don't you think?
Sure, and with Dr. Bishie, the thing is, it was never a business for him. It was also always like, he has this information, he wants to help others. So somebody like that, it's not like going to work and now you're in your work mode.
Yeah.
It's just a business to him. So if anyone had a question about health or what's going on, you know, he'd talk to them. And when you make it a business, then you have a different mindset.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to work and help people during these hours, and after that, I'm
True.
not. And so, yeah, and he still does that. You know, he's called himself retired, but if somebody asks him questions, you know, who's going to help them?
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. And your garden, it's just such a good vibe with all the real food. Anything else you want to share before we end off? Any words of inspiration or anything else you think we missed that you want to talk about? Then we can. And let everybody know where they can find you too.
Yeah. So I have Raw Life Health Show, which is my member site, and all my links are there. And that's on YouTube as well, Raw Life Health Show. And then my channel about growing foods is Fruitful Trees.
Cool.
And that's on YouTube, Fruitful Trees, or fruitfultrees.tv. We have a big mango festival coming up, which is going to be the world's biggest mango festival here at the Convention Center in West Palm Beach. And pretty much I want to just encourage everybody, you don't need to be 100% raw to get the benefits from raw food. Just watch the overeating and watch eating late at night. Try not to do that. And you got to enjoy life. You know, no matter how well you're eating, if you don't enjoy your life, it's not going to work. And so people get up, they go to work every single day doing what they don't love. It's a big problem. And you should love what you're doing. If you're not loving what you're doing, it's not healthy. And there are so many other aspects to health other than just food. So many other things. So those are things to discuss. For me, a big one that we didn't talk about is fitness.
Yeah,
I
huge.
absolutely would not be able to have done this as long as I've done this if I wasn't into fitness, because it's, you know, I know we can get tired or lazy and not want to exercise. I try to get it done first thing in the day, but that's where discipline comes in. I tell my mind, regardless of how I feel, I got to do this. So I exercise and I've spent years learning how to exercise, and I got to do this. So,
and that's a real key to longevity, I think,
yes,
the movement and the exercise.
So important, so important. And I love when I see people that are really old and they're like in the gym on the internet. I love that. And I'm going to be that guy because it is so extremely important to exercise. I'd say sleep, exercise, and diet are three things. And then, of course, the emotional, spiritual aspect of it. Those are the things to focus on. But don't worship your food. You know, just thank the Creator who gave us the food, and you'll be fine.
Well said. Well, thank you, Paul. Thanks for coming on, sharing, updating us. It's just so interesting and amazing. Keep up the good work. And we're excited to interview you as the years go on, because you're looking great, vibing high, and just doing great work. So thank you.
You keep up the great work also.
Thank you.
I've interviewed people in my books for a long time. The interviews help so many people, and now you've taken it to the digital, and you're interviewing a lot of people. So you keep up the great work, because it's encouraging people. And keep at it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this has been amazing. And thanks for welcoming us into your home. It's always extra special when we can do that. And I'll put a really great podcast on the screen right now for you guys to carry on with. And also the great one we did with Paul before on Zoom. It's so good. Check it out. And be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.